On this week's episode of the Crushing Debt Podcast, Millionaire Mindset.
Welcome to the Crushing Debt Podcast with your host, Florida attorney Shawn, where our goal is to help you get rid of the financial bullies in your life.
So welcome back to this week's episode of the Crushing Debt Podcast, and welcome to 2023, our first episode of the new year. Welcome, George. Happy New Year.
Why are you so loud? Oh man, this hangover right now is kind of it's a little buzzing. But no, right. Happy New Year, my friend. Hope everything is well. All the blessings through the holidays. We survived.
Yeah, you realize this comes out on January 5. So if you're
still 5 more days,
you're still hungover on January 5,
it was a really good New Year's.
It was an awesome party. We try, but we typically can't. The boys try to make it through New Year's. I think last year one of them barely made it through. The other fell asleep around 11 o'clock on the couch. So, always kind of fun.
Well, but we always get we get lucky enough to get one of those horrible New Year's Eve shows. Either it's like Pitbull or some kind of thing that keeps us amused for the hour. So I think that's what keeps us up and just making fun of things we see on television. So it's always a hoot.
Nice. So what do we got on board for today? I mean, I think last week's episode, the end of the year episode, was really how to focus on goals, how to set goals. And so now that we're into 2023, one of those goals probably is going to be to make more money. I know that from my perspective, I have a revenue goal for the law firm, revenue goal for me personally. It's always nice to try to hit that millionaire mark, although now I think millionaire is kind of getting a little bit easier. Now I think billionaire is the big deal.
Well, for most of us, I'll stick with the if I could be a thousandaire,
if I could be a thousandaire or a 10,000aire, I'd be happy.
I would agree with you there. But I think part of the new year, it's all about the goals, all the happiness and the aspirations of what the new year can bring us. We're at a point where it's like, okay, we want the million, right? Oh, I want to make this amount of money self this year. What are you doing? What needs to be in place for these things to be successful? So we talked about the goals and having those. Now the question is, how do you execute? Because I think there's a lot of people right now getting ready or in the gym, and they're like, oh, lofty goal, we're going to be doing this and we're going to be doing that. And it's usually, you said the recordings were out like the 5th or the 6th, right?
5th,
My
January
guess
5th.
Is by the 7th, everybody's quit their goal on their fitness part. So
they're in the gym today listening to us while they're on the treadmill or lifting weights or whatever.
Exactly.
Tomorrow, they're no longer going to be at the gym anymore.
That's usually the what happens. So what we got to try to do when it comes to this mindset, it's what do we need to have in place so that it's an entire year. And I think there's some habits, there's some things that are millionaires doing that make them millionaires. What are those things? And that's what we got to figure out.
So 2 books that I've read, I don't know, I want to say recently, probably recently as in within the last, 5 years or so. 2 books that I read. One is The Secrets of the Millionaire Mind by a guy named T. Harv Eker. Mm-hmm. The other one is The Millionaire Next Door. Now, I know The Millionaire Next Door. That one was written by Thomas J. Stanley and William D. Danko, both PhDs. And I know The Millionaire Next Door has been updated. The copy that I have is from, I don't know what the copyright date is. I'll find it here. Copyright date is 1996. Yeah. And I know it's been updated, and I think the new one is The New Millionaire Next Door or something like that. But same kind of book.
Same concept, yep.
But both of these books both go into mindset. What do millionaires have that most of us don't? And the answer is the right mindset.
Yep, I would agree itself. There's certain things that they do differently that put them in a position to achieve those goals and put them in a way that, just being persistent. It's not just about working hard and working a ton of hours and making the money itself. There's certain things that they do, things that are in place to make those kind of goals a reality.
Yeah. Now, before we really get into it, we probably do need to mention our sponsors here. The first one we'll talk about is Mark Purvis. Mark is our editor. He makes us sound good. He has a website called legacyspotlight.com where you can preserve the stories. So if you do become a millionaire and you want to tell your future generations how you got there, if you want to tell your future generations your secrets of how you built and accumulated wealth, you can go to legacyspotlight.com. Mark will schedule a session with you or multiple sessions with you to record your stories and preserve those stories for future generations. Or if you have millionaires in your family and you want to interview them about, hey, Grandpa, how did you get there? legacyspotlight.com. So, Mark, thank you for being our editor. Thank you for being with us from the very beginning. And, you can support us by supporting Mark by going to legacyspotlight.com. So, it's funny. I was looking at this book, The Secrets of the Millionaire Mind book, and I am the kind that I don't like breaking the spine when I read. So if you look at all those books on the shelf behind you, you'll notice very few of them have a broken spine. That doesn't mean I didn't read them. It just means
You're very careful.
I was careful about how I read them. The strange thing about this one is I wrote in it. I have a totally separate notebook that when I want to take notes about what I'm reading, I write in that separate notebook. And then I can go back to that notebook and I can review everything that I've ever read or thought or whatever. But for whatever reason, I wrote in this one. So I guess I've already prepared this week's episode.
You knew this 5 years ago.
I knew when I started. Now, I think the podcast was around 5 years ago. So what I wrote down here was a couple of things. And this is from Secrets of the Millionaire Mind. Your income can grow only to the extent you do.
Oof. Powerful already.
I know. And I think part of that is, I think this was one of the books that really got me into that reflective time that I use every morning to read or to journal or to just basically plan out my day. And so a lot of people make fun of me, but I realize that I'm most effective first thing in the morning. So when I wake up first thing in the morning, I check my sugar, I get my coffee, I sit on the couch, the house is quiet, the kids are asleep most mornings, the wife is asleep most mornings, and I can sit and read for anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes at a shot. I try to get an entire chapter of whatever book I'm reading done, at least one chapter, but 20 to 30 minutes of reading every morning in quiet has kind of become my meditation time.
I love it. Well, and what's funny is there's a mindset that you're putting out there. It's all about the habits, putting the things into practice. You just did two things with one. I mean, brilliant. Shawn is already, you could tell he's on fire already at the beginning of the year.
Without even knowing it.
It's so habit forming and that's learning. And then the growth part of this is learning. Millionaires itself, there's never something you don't know. You're constantly growing. You're constantly challenging yourself. You're putting yourself out there. And a lot of us, we feel like, oh, I'll be a millionaire. I'll just do the same work for the 40 years, and that's what's going to work. And notice, for me, it's like you don't grow if you feel like you're going to do the same job for 40 years. You have to look for opportunities for that. And I love you knock both of those out right at the beginning. I
mean, even our best athletes, you think about Michael Jordan,
right.
You think about Tom Brady, you think about Wayne Gretzky, you think about, all of our famous athletes all have coaches, as good as they are,
exactly.
As many All-Stars awards they've won, as many championship trophies they've won, they all have coaches as well, coaches to help them create those habits.
And I love that as a coach here, financial coach, that's what you got to help people, guide them and really put them on the path. It's that accountability, Jordan and Babe Ruth and, even Albert Pujols. I'll go, even recent superstars itself from a baseball perspective. All of them have people who hold them accountable for getting better, doing more, learning about their swing, learning about what their profession is, whatever is necessary to get them better. Because we're not athletes doesn't mean we can't have the same habits and do the same thing with our lives.
Exactly. One of the other things in here that I wrote down, if you want to change the fruits, you first have to change the roots. If you want to change the visible, you must first change the invisible.
Wow.
I think it's kind of along the same lines of what people see in terms of, I'll even use the podcast as an example.
Sure.
I mean, the shows come out, people listen to the shows, that's great. But what people don't see are the Zoom video recording until you get them posted. All the technology that goes into it, the
Correct.
mics, the speakers, the pop screens, the
research,
all the stuff that we do during recordings so that we have good content to provide out to all of you. It's what people don't see that typically makes the millionaire successful.
Right.
It's not what people do see. And it's kind of this, keeping up with the Joneses mentality. I don't necessarily buy into that. I don't necessarily care about that. Every once in a while I do. It's human nature.
It is. But
for the most part, avoiding the, so-and-so got a new car, I need to get a new car. Right. So-and-so got a new house, I need to get a new house.
Well, I think the other thing, too, in those kind of scenarios is we can use that as motivation to like, oh, that'd be a great idea. Like, look at that. They purchased something, they did something better themselves through the hard work that they're doing. Why can't we, we can use that as motivation. Well, why can't I do that? Why can't we do those kind of things? So I think it's a good idea, but I think we as a society take it a little too far in regards to like, I've got to look a certain part to make someone else happy. And I think most millionaires probably, well, again, the ones that are not in the news, they don't spend their money. You're a millionaire because you probably are saving more, right, investing more, and having more in the pocket rather than trying to show that you're that millionaire status. So it's a little different mindset there as well.
It's interesting. I've heard, I've read, I've seen millionaires don't dress like millionaires. They
no
go
Gucci?
No, they may have,
they probably could.
They could, or maybe they do own a nice watch, or maybe they do own a nice piece of jewelry, but they're not necessarily flaunting it. Typically they're wearing sneakers and shorts and t-shirts and whatever. They're not dressing in. Now, if they're working, I'm sure they're dressing in nice custom-made suits and that kind of stuff.
Right.
But when you see them out on the street, one of the secrets of being a millionaire is that they don't spend like they're a millionaire.
Right.
And that's something my dad even warned me about way, way, way back before I got started being a lawyer. He's, as your income goes up, your expenses don't have to match it.
Exactly. And that's, I think most people, you win the lottery. We had, again, the podcast in regards to the windfalls and things like that. What ends up most of us having is like, oh, I need to make more money, so then I'll save. Then I'll do this. Then I'll do that. What ends up happening is you make more money. What ends up happening, you start spending more because you're like, oh, I deserve it.
Right.
I do these kind of things. And I think for most of us, that mindset that needs to be in place is to kind of like, okay, I've got a windfall. Great. What can I do more to grow, to better, do the things that we've been saying for so long? You just set goals. And you got a windfall. Let's actually try to put some things in place to make those goals a reality.
Yeah. Now, at the same time, I'm not going to beat up anybody. I'm not going to beat up anybody, period. But I'm not going to beat up anybody if they said, I had a goal of hitting this revenue goal. I hit the revenue goal. And so I rewarded myself by buying a blank.
Perfect.
As long as it's not, I hit this revenue goal and I rewarded myself by buying a $50,000 car.
Well, I mean, if your revenue goal was $1 million, $50,000 is fine.
Maybe.
That's okay. But I agree with you there. Set the goal with the reward before you hit it so that you know that's, you're achieving something that gets you that reward. And I think, hey, I'm going to walk 30 minutes a day, and my reward during those walks is listening to a fine podcast like this one.
Exactly.
That's my reward. It doesn't have to be monetary. It can be something of that as well, to whatever motivates you, whatever gets you off your butt. And I think that's what we're doing here.
I mean, both of these books, The Secrets of the Millionaire Mind and The Millionaire Next Door, both of these books, and I've talked about it on the show before, I got from the public library. I went to the bookstore out front of the public library and I bought these books. As a reward for hitting a goal, right. I bought myself a book that was no more than $2 or $3 each. And at the same time, the other thing I've learned is whenever I get stuck, whenever there's a book that's sitting on the table that I'm in the middle of reading, but I just can't get motivated to read it, one of the other things I do is I go out and I buy a new book. My style is I can't read more than one book at a time. I'll drive myself nuts. I need to finish the one I'm working on before I start the new one. So if I buy a new one and I'm excited about reading the new one, I'll finish the old one to get to the new one.
He knows his mind and he plays the games even with with himself.
I play games on myself.
Why not? Do what you know. We know each other. We know ourselves. Do what you need to be able to convince yourself, motivate yourself to actually get those goals accomplished itself. I love the fact that again, these are habits that you've put in place that motivate you, keep you moving forward, get things done. Like I said, you don't make excuses for yourself, and I love that you keep pushing yourself for that. So that's good.
You haven't known me that long.
There you go.
One of the last ones in here that I wrote down: when the subconscious mind must choose between deeply rooted emotions and logic, emotions will almost always win.
Ooh. Is that a good thing or a bad thing, I guess?
I think it's more of a warning in terms of know yourself, know where your emotions are going to take over, even though, I shouldn't buy that new blank. I shouldn't do that new this or that.
But I really want it. It's so shiny, whatever that blank is. We will justify the heck out of any type of purchase itself, even if we think we have the money, don't have the money, broke is, hey, I've got a meeting with my bankruptcy lawyer next week, and yet I can still justify a purchase.
Exactly.
These are little things itself that we have to be conscious of. And I love the fact that, keep the logic in those kind of decisions and the work we do and what we trying to accomplish, because you're right, our emotions, they'll let us know, don't worry, you got this, you can it's all right, it's only another $1,000, no big deal.
Or what I've talked about before on the show is the person that says, well, that new client just said yes, and so I'm going to go out and spend that money as if I've received it when the client hasn't quite paid me yet. Being careful about your emotions taking over and saying, yeah, I did great, so now I can go out and buy this blank before the client's paid you or before you've gotten, I hit the lottery, let me go. I had realtors back in the day that they used to complain about to me that the closing hadn't happened yet or that the distribution from the closing hadn't happened yet. Right. And I said, well, the closing's tomorrow. And they said, well, yeah, but I went out in anticipation of the closing and I bought
of course
this new suit. I bought this new car. I bought this new thing or this or that. And I need the money from the closing to pay for it. Well, why'd you buy it before the closing happened?
Yeah, guys, that's definitely a good lesson right there of do not go ahead of your purchase. I always say, don't spend money you don't have.
Don't spend it before you get it.
Gosh, please.
That's, I think, the biggest thing that I see that puts people into trouble is spending it before they have it.
I hear you. Trust me, I think I've done that a few times in my life as well. So no judgment here, but I'm saying let's learn from I'm going to emphasize another mindset, millionaire mindset that we have here is accept the mistakes as they come. Failure is part of our growth.
Yeah.
Please learn from our mistakes so that we don't go and repeat them. We have to embrace failure. I'd imagine Jobs and Musk, all of them didn't, it was the first idea and right away, boom, there it is. The company, they probably went through iterations of, ideas, failures, this and that to get to where they are today. That's, for us, it's got to be the same thing.
Yeah. What did Edison say about how many versions of the light bulb did he have to go through before he finally got it right?
Exactly.
That kind of thing. I'm reading a book right now, the one I'm in the middle of right now. Hopefully by the time this episode comes out, I'm done with it and on to the next one. It's called The Happiness Advantage, and it's all about a mindset of happiness and how happy people are more successful most of the time. And one of the things it talks about is falling up. In other words, learning from your mistakes. A lot of times I make a mistake and your first thought is, oh my God, the world's coming to an end. When you really step back and think about it, I've told my staff before, I don't care if you make a mistake.
Right.
Just don't make the same mistake twice.
Right.
Learn from it and don't make it again. A lot of people say to me, wow, how did you know that? Well, because I screwed up.
Yeah, exactly.
And someone called me on it and now I know never to do it again. It's not because I'm super smart. It's just I remember not to make the same mistakes over and over again.
Fair enough. But here's the other thing. As part of that, I would think too, accountability, own the mistakes as well. Yeah. I feel like sometimes we're a little bit easy to, it was somebody else or, it was a circumstance. And I'm like, look, guys, just own your mess. Own your situation and just learn from it and get better from it. That's all. Well,
and I'm sure you've dealt with both of these different types of people in your practice, but I deal with a bunch of different clients, but the two that stand out, the client that says, this is all my fault, and they beat themselves up.
Yeah, that's got to be careful.
I don't think you should do that.
No.
But then 180 degrees opposite, the client that says, this is everybody else's fault. Why did the bank charge me 18% interest or 20% interest on that credit card? The bank shouldn't have done that. They don't take any responsibility for the situation they're in. And I've helped both of those types of clients before, but I think the millionaire would look at it and say, I goofed. What lessons can I learn from this? If it is legitimately somebody else's fault, fine. But if it's not, don't try to find a scapegoat, learn from it, and move on.
Yeah, I'd say making excuses for ourselves it also seemed to hold us up. I got something here. It's like excuses will hold you back from pushing forward and achieving your goals. I mean, for me, it just shows that we can talk ourselves out of anything if we allow our emotions to get over on our logic.
Well, and again, it's not ever really as bad as you think. I got an email last week from an attorney that had referred me a client, and we had a filing deadline of something that we had to get filed, a court deadline of something we had to get filed, and we missed the court deadline. And so I get this email from the attorney that says, hey, the deadline was X days ago. Did we get this thing filed? And my heart sank because this is an attorney that sent me a bunch of stuff. And so I really don't want to screw up and have those referrals stop. And so my first reaction was, oh my God, the world's coming to an end. She's never going to send me a referral ever again. The law firm's going to go out of business. When I took a step back and looked at it, I think the situation's going to end up being a no harm, no foul scenario. Yeah, we missed the deadline, but without going into the complexity of what happened, it's probably not going to impact us. The worst case scenario is that my client's not going to get as much money as they think they're entitled to.
Okay.
But it's not like they're going to get zero. It's not like the court's going to say you don't get any money at all because you missed this deadline. Worst case scenario is that they may get a little bit less than what they had planned.
Okay.
We can live with that. Plus, when we looked at it, this was a scenario where we sent the document to the client. We said, please review, let us know if it's accurate. They never got back to us. Now, to my staff's credit, they said it's probably our fault for not putting a reminder in that we should have followed up with the client.
Fair enough.
But still, we sent it to the client. The client never got back to us. It was just kind of a miscommunication all around.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, I think it's going to be a no harm, no foul. It's not going to be a situation where I'm going to get a complaint from the Florida bar.
I hope not.
For messing up the client's file.
Please not.
No.
Let's not put that into the universe.
Those are not fun to deal with.
No, I can imagine. Well, here's the other thing I would say for all of this. You're not alone. Millionaire mindset. I believe those kind of folks itself get out there and go, they have a coach, they have a mentor, they have people they talk to throw ideas against, have someone who listens and provides some wise advice. I think a lot of us have to put ourselves in that situation where we're also having those conversations to be able to bounce those ideas and kind of get us to the next step. So you're not alone in this. Find someone who can help you in your growth, push you a little bit, hold you accountable with the goals that you set for 2023. Like I said, let's not be failing on our goals 6 or 7 days into the new year, guys.
Right.
Let's try to do something a little different.
Let's at least get 1 month in.
At least 15 days. Come on. That's all I'm saying.
And, the other thing, too, there, to kind of follow up on last week's episode and even as part of the millionaire mindset for this week's episode, now that you've got your goals, now that you've written your goals down, you don't just put them on the shelf and let them collect dust until this time next year where we look at what were our goals for 2023. I typically review my goals once a week and say, in terms of my goals that I wanted to accomplish, where am I? What do I got to do this month to hit those goals? What do I got to do this quarter to hit those goals? What do I got to do by June to make sure I'm on track for those goals? So I think another part of that millionaire mindset is you don't just set it and forget it. I heard the analogy of an airplane. When you're flying from Miami to California, you don't make a straight line. You're constantly, the pilot's constantly making, a tweak here, an angle there, a few degrees this way, a few degrees that way. It's not I'm going to take off from Miami and land in California. Well, it just doesn't happen that way.
You probably will end up in Oregon if that's the case.
Yeah. Or in the ocean or somewhere.
No bad juju. You gave us a framework itself to end here, right? So the framework itself is you guys have set your goals. You're reviewing them on a weekly, monthly basis itself. You're making adjustments as the year progresses. And what habits are you forming to make those goals? What behavioral changes? What are you putting in place to make those goals a reality? So I love the fact that you have a little framework there that you put us out there, and now we have it where, okay, I have things that I need to be on top of so that 6 months from now, I can actually look at the information, the data. Hey, I had a revenue goal. Well, how do we do? What was the things that worked, what didn't work, and adjust.
Yeah.
So I agree with you there, man. From a business to personal, weight gain to financials, it's one of those kind of things. You got to have the mindset to get those things into actual reality.
Yeah, and whether it's financial, whether it's fitness, whether it's whatever, it's all the same process. What's the goal? How do I get there? What do I need to put in place? And then what do I do every day? I don't have to hit the December 31 goal by January 5. As long as I'm on pace for it, I think that's good enough for me.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I got to say, though, guys, it's not easy. Don't worry. We get it. As much as we could say it's so easy to throw it out into the universe, all we can recommend is one day at a time.
Yeah.
Do what you do every day. Put something into practice, into place for you to actually make those things reality.
If it were easy, everybody'd be doing it.
Exactly. Everybody would be millionaires.
Yeah.
And isn't that what we're, or thousandaires?
Thousandaires. So speaking of thousandaires, I want to get to our second sponsor. Actually, I don't know. I have no idea what his finances are. But
sorry.
Yeah, sorry, Sam. Sam Cohen, longtime supporter of the show, longtime friend of mine, longtime friend of the show. He owns Attorneys First Insurance. So if you are an attorney or title company and you're looking for malpractice coverage or E&O coverage, reach out to Sam at attorneysfirst.com, or his website is also attorneysfirst.com. He can give you an apples to apples comparison of what you got versus what he can offer. He can even cover people that have had claims in the past. He is a straight shooter and no nonsense, and not a hard sale either. If he can't help you, he will tell you that he can't help you. So thank you, Sam, for all of your support over the years as our sponsor of the show. The other thing I wanted to do is let everybody know one of our goals. I don't know exactly how we're going to word it yet, but I know one of our goals is to bring more attention to the Patreon page and start to do more things for you, for the listeners, with our Patreon page. So really the only way we can do that is if we have more patrons. So go over to patreon.com. I think it's /crushingdebt. Let us know, what kinds of stuff do you want to see there? What kinds of things can we put in there? While you're surfing on the internet, also go check out Cabello Financial TikTok page. There's still content being put up there. And then one of the things I'm going to ask you to do is hold me accountable. So I've been saying for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks how Yesner Law has a YouTube page, and that is absolutely true. But I can't tell you the last time I updated it. So
there you go. Good.
I will rely on all of you to hold me accountable to getting the Yesner Law page filled up, the Yesner Law YouTube page filled up with helpful content as we get into 2023 and beyond. But I think that'll do it for the first episode of 2023.
Yay! Still a little loud in here, but we're okay.
Yeah. We still need to be quiet, but anyway, I think that'll do it. The millionaire mindset, definitely something that will help you have more money at the end of the month rather than more month at the end of the money. Welcome everybody to 2023 if you're listening to this on the day of release, and we hope that this is one of your best years ever. But I think that'll do it for this week's episode. Thanks, George.
Thank you, sir.
And we will catch you on next week's episode of the Crushing Debt Podcast.
If you have questions that you think would make a great topic for a future episode, please email Shawn or connect with us on social media. Shawn Yesner and Yesner Law, PL, are Florida licensed attorneys. The information contained in this week's episode is not a substitute for legal advice. Your situation may differ, especially if you are located somewhere other than the state of Florida. If you have questions, please contact our office or contact a local attorney. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Crushing Debt Podcast.